Welcome, everybody, to the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, episode 33. I'm Christian Brindle. I'm joined with my co-host, Glen Shelton. Everybody, good morning to everybody that's watching live.
Felt like New Year's again right there.
Oh, my
My
goodness.
countdown.
Didn't it?
Happy 2025, everybody.
Happy 2025, everybody. As promised, right, we are here doing a live show for you. Now, there's going to be way more attention paid to, I think, this podcast on the replay than the live, but I'm anticipating a ton of live attention on the live podcast. And we have a jam-packed show for you guys today.
I do.
I'm super excited about it. I know Glenn is too. Where we wanted to start off with this podcast is kind of a topic of conversation that started in the group, but it's something that I've seen plenty of, and that is live pitches at industry events. And I think we both have some thoughts on this. It's definitely a very polarizing topic, and I mean, let's just dive right in and start this conversation. So tell me what your thoughts are about this, right? When you see this conversation going.
Yeah, I want to say something immediately that I've been thinking about. Okay, something, and I'd love to hear. I'm going to say a quick question. I just want to see what your response to this is. My personal belief is that a great salesman doesn't appear to be selling. True or false?
True.
Okay. I think a great salesman, it's a natural conversation, and that could be happening on stage. That could be happening one-on-one. It could be over the phone. It could be at the kitchen table. But I think a truly great salesperson is going to go through their pitch. It's going to be very fluid, very conversational. They might take out some of these objections up front. They're providing the value. And I've had those, personally. I've also been sold to that way as well. Like, I've been on both sides of that. So I personally feel like if you go to, and this was one of the thoughts I had, a quick story here, you guys. I was 17 years old. I'm working at Dunkin' Donuts. Okay.
You worked at Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, I have the hat. My wife tried to throw the hat away. I have it somewhere. I will find it.
Please
today,
find it.
We will, maybe tomorrow.
How did I not know
maybe
this?
Tomorrow. I used to work at Dunkin' Donuts. I would just eat the donut holes in the back. Oh my gosh. Maybe that's what I'll do when I get older. That'll be my retirement job. I'm going to go back to Dunkin'. I'm working at Dunkin' Donuts. A man walks in and he goes, "Hey, do you want to get paid to play video games?" I'm 17 years old. This sounds like, I'm looking around. I'm like, yes, I do want to get paid to play video games. This sounds like the best thing that's ever happened to me. He gives me his card. He says, "Hey, there's a meeting next week. I'd really like you to be there. You can learn how to get paid to play video games." I'm skipping home from work. I'm telling all my friends, my family, I'm like, I'm going to a meeting next week. I'm going to learn how to get paid to play video games. I actually end up taking one of my friends to this meeting. I walk into this meeting.
Wait. Before.
Okay.
Let me guess.
Okay.
Is it an MLM?
It's an MLM, baby! Yeah, nailed it. That's exactly what it was.
It's setting the tone.
That's exactly what it was. I have never felt so rug pulled in my life either, because I'm literally thinking like it's either going to be like an hourly position, or maybe it'll be like this cool thing where like milestones in the video game, like, you achieve certain milestones, you're going to get paid a certain amount. I'm just so pumped going in. I am getting pitched so hard from the moment I walk in. Get your friends and family in here. The video game's not even done being built yet. But the more people you sign up, the more money you're going to make. This is going to be one of the biggest video games in the world. You're getting in ground floor. I walked in, just ecstatic to be there, to be a part of it. I walked out and I'm like, I have to go apologize to all these people that I even talked to this event about, right? I'm like, I don't want anyone to go to that. I had to tell my friend, I'm like, I'm out. I'm not doing this. So that was one of my thoughts as this was being kicked around, is I'm like, when I've been to events, small or big, and there's hard pitches going on, it's a lot of friction. It doesn't feel good. I don't personally like it. And that's just been my experience. So tell me your thoughts on this. Industry events, sales from stages, all of that.
Yeah. I mean, so definitely in an interesting position to kind of have an opinion on this, right? Because obviously we are both individuals that host an event, an industry event.
We do.
I have spoken at countless industry events over the years. I've been involved with probably every major, well, not almost every major industry event that I can think of. I've been involved. I've been a speaker. So I have a kind of unique perspective on it. And, you know, I started thinking about this morning in kind of preparation of the show. And I thought back to a situation that happened post this year's event for the summit where, and I don't know if you remember this, one thing we have done historically, and we're not the only event that does this, every major event that I'm aware of does this, but for our higher end sponsors, we give them a copy of our list of attendees, right? And this year, we provided email addresses and phone numbers and names and things like that. One of our sponsors, not to throw them under the bus or say it was right or wrong or anything like that, but just hammered the event list.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember.
Lots of calls,
yes.
Lots of follow-up. And if you recall, there was a little bit of complaining from some of the attendees. But again, this was not just our event. That was all the other major industry events as well, with the same sponsor. So It wasn't just our event. I don't want to say it was an isolated event by any means. But there was a lot of chatter about that. And at the time, I went back and found my comments on it because I publicly commented on it where I said, and I quote somewhere along the lines, I said something along the lines of, it's crazy to me, all these salespeople that are afraid of being sold to. Those are my comments.
Yeah.
That being said, I do believe that to a certain extent. I think it's one thing for salespeople to be sold to. I think it's another thing to where, let's say you're advertised something. Let's say you're advertised, buy a ticket to this event and you'll be taught for 2 days on how to grow your business. And then you travel out, you get a hotel room, you get a plane ticket, you go to the event, you take time away from your business, you take time away from your family.
Yep.
And then when you get there, it's not at all what it was advertised. And I feel like that is more of a bait and switch than being afraid of being sold to. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, misadvertising. There's also the paywall approach of, move all of your contracts and then, you get access to all of this, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, again, if it was advertised as, hey, everybody should come to this and you can learn how to be successful, and then you show up and it's, hey, you contract with us. I mean, could you imagine doing that at one of our events? Could you imagine I wish, right? I wish, but that would, I want everyone
to come back the next year, right?
Yeah. I also, a big thing we've talked about for those in the audience who's, you follow Christian and I, we've talked so much about how we want to work with all agents in the industry, whether you're an agent with us, you're contracted with us or not. We're all about trying to find solutions to work with everyone. So the idea of trying to corral agents, right? Which is the way I almost see this, where it's like you get agents in a room, lock the doors. We're pitching for 8 hours and you're contracting with us by the end. That type of approach seems wild to me because, again, my viewpoint is I want to be able to work with everyone, whether they're contracted with us or not. I want to be able to educate, offer solutions, have fun together. So, yeah, I think there is some potential misadvertising at industry events that's going on for sure.
It's an interesting perspective because some people will say, because you can't deny that it's effective, right? When those situations happen, the people that are hosting the event make a ton of dough, right? Way more dough than we make at our event. I mean, we could make way more money at our event if we did those kind of things. I mean, we take it in the shorts because we try to keep it pure.
That's true.
I mean, true. You know what I mean? Like
a lot of honesty on this podcast already, guys. We're not even 10 minutes in.
But I've always known from day one that we could go that route and make a bunch of dough anytime we wanted to. I just care about the integrity of the event too much to do that.
Well, I think the 7-figure Facebook group is a great reflection of that as well. We could take the 7-figure Facebook group and really try to recruit aggressively, ban everybody. Like there's a lot of, I think, approaches we could take. But again, we want to help agents. We want a community. We want to be able to educate not just you guys, but everyone's sharing knowledge, networking in the group. Like we want that. We do want that purity, and you see that in other Facebook groups too. There's a lot of Facebook groups that take different approaches.
Absolutely. I mean, but I circle back to say, and I don't want this to dominate the whole show, but I do think it's such an interesting topic.
Yeah.
I say all that to say, to circle back to kind of my point I kind of got away from for a second there was, people will point to and be like, look at these people, they're making all this money, this way and doing this event. I mean, our business makes a ton of money too, just not that way.
Right.
And, they look at it from the standpoint of look how well they're doing, and it's almost like, you're, haters gonna hate kind of mentality, right?
Sure.
If there's any criticism to doing it that way. And I think there's certain people that look at it that way. They're like, they look at it that way. It's like, oh, can't argue with results. And I suppose fair enough. I think it just depends on what you want your event to be like. I've just never felt right personally advertising something to be a certain way. And then when I'm actually delivering the product that I'm advertising, it's just a completely different thing than what they're being advertised to. I've just never felt good about that. It kind of reminds me of, almost a little bit of, what's it called? The travel thing that they do like the 6-hour seminars. What are they?
Oh, the timeshare. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, the timeshare. Which again, it's just like when you're saying that's what happened to me with that MLM pitch, right?
Yeah.
I was told I'm going to get paid to play video games, and I show up and they want me to go recruit people to pay money into a video game that's not even developed yet, right? I mean, complete misadvertising. But yeah, timeshare pitches are another great example. For sure.
Now, that being said, do timeshares make a boatload of money? I'm sure they do, right? So like, is it a situation where it's like, oh, respect the hustle, this or that? It's not anything they're doing is necessarily illegal or anything like that. So I think there's certain people that look at it that way. I don't mean to be too critical to anybody that it does do their events that way. I just have never felt, I guess, comfortable doing my event that way because I really care that people show up to the event and they leave saying, wow, I learned so much. I have so much to implement. I have more notes of things I want to implement that I can probably even implement at a time. And this was a great event. It helped me a lot, and I want to come back next year. That's really what my goal is for the event. That's what I want, and I'm willing to have some of the profits of the event suffer as a result.
Sure.
But yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic, right? Because a lot of polarizing different opinions on it.
Sure, and not that one's. This will be my final thoughts on this, you guys. Is not saying that one way is right and one way is necessarily wrong. I totally believe there's different philosophies out there. In the best way I can describe this is like, I have really great liberal friends and really great conservative friends. And I don't think one's wrong or one's right. Like I try to get along with everybody. And I think when it comes to these industry events that are structured, differently. I'm not trying to say that like some of these are absolutely wrong and some and we're the only ones doing it right. I just think there's different philosophies to running these industry events, and Christian and I have our own philosophy that we adhere to, and we kind of wanted to share some of our thoughts and feelings and opinions on what we're seeing and hearing.
Absolutely. Glenn, talk to us about this episode's sponsor for a second, would you?
Yes. Today's episode, you guys, is supported by Hire Heroes. Hire Heroes offers curated virtual assistants, people who have a track record of success, who can be interviewed by you before you start working with them, and then placed in your agency to help you start growing your business even faster. The worst thing you can do as an independent agent or as an agency owner is get bogged down and spend your valuable time doing $10 an hour tasks, data entry, answering basic emails, making sure that your CRM gets updated. All of these different $10 an hour tasks can be outsourced to an employee, allowing you to focus on your highest revenue generating activities. For more information on how you can get a curated virtual assistant placed in your business to help you grow even faster, head over to hireheroes.com. That's hireheroes.com.
Before we move on to the next topic at hand, the main topic of today's show, there have been some comments on the live stream about who is standing behind you. Would you care to address this?
I was waiting. I was waiting for that. Is there? I don't see the comments. Right? I don't have it pulled up. Is there correct guesses, or are people just genuinely wondering who that is?
There's been both. There has been correct guesses, and there's also been genuine curiosity of who stands behind you.
I do want to say before I announce this, I've had my kids have come into my office one by one over the past week that I've had this up, and they've all been terrified. Dad, who's in your office? Down to my 4-year-old who was almost in tears over thinking someone was hiding in my office waiting to jump him. Behind me, you guys, is our new commander-in-chief at CMS, Dr. Mehmet Oz. He will be a part of the live stream. Someone shout out, I can't remember who it was. Shout out to whoever it was in the group who shared a link where I could grab a cardboard cutout of Dr. Oz. I instantly jumped on that link when that got shared in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. Jumped on that link, ordered it right away. It took a week or so to get here, and there he is. So that is Dr. Mehmet Oz. He will be our new CMS. I want to say chief, but I know that's not. What is it? Commissioner?
Chief.
CMS.
Yeah,
He's
CMS,
our new
CMS
chief
commissioner. CMS commissioner.
He will be our new CMS commissioner here in just a few weeks, as long as I guess he's not sworn in. It's just a appointed position. So yeah, just a few weeks here. He should be appointed and take the reins. So yeah, I thought that was a great piece of 2025 to have here in the live stream.
I love it. Let's shift gears to the main topic of the episode today. And it's one that we could probably talk about for the next hour. Typically these shows will be in the ballpark of an hour. So we have plenty of time still to kind of toss this around and kind of dive into this. But there was an article that came out recently, and it was actually an article that was put out by United Health Group. And I wanted to, because I've been paying a lot of attention, as I'm sure many of you have, to see kind of what any public responses they would put out, because they, let's be honest, have just been dragged through the mud in the last 30 days since the assassination took place on the United Healthcare CEO. And, in the media, YouTubers, influencers, I even saw Joe Rogan talking about it. Patrick Bet-David, crazy how the amount of reach that this got to. And so I've been paying attention to kind of see if there would be any kind of public response. If they did put out another public response, I may have missed it. I didn't see it, but I did see this public response. And it was in response to a Wall Street Journal article that was basically bashing Medicare Advantage. And basically they were putting out statistics and data on Medicare Advantage and defending Medicare Advantage, which I found interesting that was what they were defending. And I'll just kind of read through a little bit of the article. I won't go too deep into it, but I think it opens up a larger topic of conversation about what has transpired publicly on this deeper conversation of healthcare and insurance. But so it starts out by saying the facts. Medicare Advantage delivers better outcomes, more coverage, and lower costs. In a series of misleading articles, the Wall Street Journal has waged a one-sided biased attack on Medicare Advantage, a program millions of seniors rely on for healthcare. The narratives woven through the articles rely on often incomplete and inaccurate data to conduct flawed studies through a murky government agreement, quote, and clearly demonstrate that the journal does not understand the Medicare Advantage program, how it is designed to function, or why it differs from traditional fee-for-service programs, which emphasizes volume over quality and patient outcomes. We have provided overwhelming evidence demonstrating the value of MA to seniors, the government and taxpayers offering data and third-party analysis to encourage a more complete and accurate representation of the Medicare Advantage program. Evidence the Wall Street Journal has chosen to ignore. So it just kind of goes on from there, right? It's a rather lengthy article, but it's also a conversation that we see in groups and just in conversations with agents in general. There are certainly agents out there that have a belief that Medicare Advantage is a bad program, that Medicare supplement or die kind of mentality, right? I mean, talk a little bit about like your reaction seeing all of this all of this chatter, right?
Yeah.
Of the conversation about insurance, United Healthcare, the healthcare system. By the way, I want to before you start talking, I want to preface any comments by saying I love United Healthcare. Our organization loves United Healthcare. They're one of our best partners as a carrier, and we do not by any means have the same kind of experience on the claims or anything that's being reported. And so that's why I've been kind of publicly pushing back against it, because I'm like, I don't see that. We probably have 1,000 Medicare Advantage clients with United Healthcare in our book of business.
Yeah.
More, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And if what's being reported is true, if they're denying a third of claims, we would be up to our eyeballs every single day and no one would want to stay on the plans, but that's just not what we see.
Right.
So anyway, sorry, I'll turn it over.
No. That was a great, I think, kind of introduction to this really big topic. And it has been very interesting. And I've been following this so closely that at one point my wife was like, man, you're really into this whole storyline. I'm like, well, I'm on all sides of it. I have ownership in a Medicare Advantage brokerage, right? I am an insurance agent. My parents are on a Medicare Advantage plan. So I really do feel like I'm looking at this topic from multiple different viewpoints. And the one thing, and I read this entire article this morning, top to bottom, so I could be familiar with it. And I think the statistics in there were pretty eye-opening. The one off the top of my head is it was about a 50% reduction in acute illness. As far as seniors, I think, going to the hospital. So Medicare Advantage plans compared to Medicare for fee services, they saw a 50% reduction in senior, which is like, a senior who gets a cold, they're not going to the hospital because they're on a Medicare Advantage plan. And that's a big deal because, in my opinion, with seniors, that's, and if you have a loved one, an older senior, and maybe someone who's passed away, maybe you've seen this happen, but a lot of times it is that acute illness that potentially leads to a serious illness and then eventual death. So I think cutting out 50% of acute illnesses is going to lead to longer, healthier lives for seniors across the U.S. So I thought that stat was that was the one that really caught my eye. But to kind of backtrack here, I think what's going on specifically is the healthcare system here in the United States, beyond Medicare, the entire healthcare system as a whole. What we're seeing going on is that it's reached a level of complexity that confuses the average consumer. And it's also, I think, confusing. You did a really great video talking about some of the issues that doctors have with billing codes. So essentially, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think the level of complexity is so high in the US healthcare system that you have confusion across all levels. You have confusion with the consumer, who's the patient. You have consumer with the provider, the doctor, the nurses, the clinics. You have confusion with the insurance carriers. There's confusion with, potentially the government subsidy programs, where they might be confused about where they plug into this. And so the more complex something becomes, the less likely someone's going to be happy or satisfied based on that confusion.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say before I'll kind of turn the reins over back to you to kind of get deeper into this. As an insurance agent, when I'm sitting at the table with someone, I have had simple instructions, like simple directions, where I'm explaining to someone how, hey, this is how life insurance works. In the event of a death or serious illness, this is how your policy could help you. And when I keep it simple and explain how it works, and then offer them a solution, they're significantly more likely to buy. And I think their happiness with their policies also typically higher. If I sit at that same table and I say, hi, Mrs. Jones, there's 32 different life insurance carriers that I can offer you. We could look at an accidental plan. We could look at a term life plan. We could look at a UL. And if I got into like all the different options and how everything works, they're most likely going to be so confused with what I just tried to explain to them. They probably won't get a plan. If they do get a plan, they might regret the plan they picked after talking to someone else. So too many options. I wish I could wave a wand and simplify the US healthcare system. I really wish I could, but I have no idea how you could really do that at this point without major overhaul, major change.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, some thoughts I have on the whole situation is, you mentioned the video that I put out a couple of weeks ago about it. I wanted to put that out because, in my opinion, we are in a unique perspective from the standpoint that we deal with any of us that run agencies that have big books of businesses, right? And if you're providing ongoing services, I'm sure you do. If you have a big book of business, you wouldn't keep them otherwise. If you're providing long-term service to that book of business, you intimately experience claims in a way that most people don't from every insurance company.
Right.
And so do we get claim situations where something is not being paid, is denied that it should be from every insurance company? We do. And what I tried to point out in that video is very often, significant amount of times, is it's not the fault of the insurance company all the time, right? It's the overall complexity that you mentioned with the healthcare system, right? I mean, so if you're dealing with a situation where there's three things I think that play a factor in the complexity. Number one, medical systems and hospital systems, they charge a lot of money, right, for their services. They charge a ton of freaking money.
Yes.
We had to take my daughter to the hospital for something small. It ended up, usually how it goes. You think it's big, right. Not big, but it's expensive, complex. But my wife goes in and she's trying to talk to the billing person when she's leaving. And is like, okay, what would this be if we ran it through our insurance? What would the cash price be? And it was a freaking shit show because the billing person had no idea. They're like, I think it's this, but I don't know. And we still are trying to figure it out. We don't know. Like a week ago. They're charging immense amounts of money for their services, and billing and insurance billing is so complicated. Right? There's billing codes. There's a million different billing codes. It's a different system, different process for each insurance company. And the average billing person is dealing with a multitude of different types of insurance products. They're dealing with group health. They're dealing with ACA. They're dealing with Medicare. They're dealing with TRICARE for life, all these different things. And not only that, most of these billing people aren't trained very well on insurance. A quick story I'll share. when I was a year or two into the business, I think I was a year in, I ran into a situation where at the time, United Healthcare was offering, and they still offer them, I believe, Medicare supplement products that were called Select Medicare supplement products. Basically what they were is they were Select F, for example, Select G, and they were lower cost versions of a Plan F, for example, that has a provider network. So kind of a hybrid version of a Medicare supplement plan. You don't see them very much. They're not super popular, but they exist with certain carriers. And a hospital system that was out of the network for this Select network, the Select Medicare supplement network, they did not understand the difference between a Select Medicare supplement and a regular Medicare supplement. We all know regular Medicare supplements, they don't have networks. You can go anywhere, right? As long as they take Medicare.
This episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the 7 Figure University. 7figureuniversity.com is a culmination of Christian Brindle's and mine's educational videos that we have developed over the past 2 decades of combined experience in the senior insurance space. There's more than 250 videos, hundreds of hours of content that can help you become a top producer or a top producing agency in the senior insurance space. We're talking about videos of how to work with specific carriers, how to do different types of marketing, such as seminars or Facebook advertising, how to generate content in the niche to help grow your business, how to grow an agency, all sorts of things. There's so much value in this. It's unbelievable. Christian, what do agents need to know about 7 Figure University?
7 Figure University can best be thought of as an agency blueprint in a box that's put together for you that brings you step by step in every facet of building a successful 7-figure insurance agency and lays it out all in front of you so you can follow along. Whether you guys need help with marketing, whether you guys need help with branding, whether you guys need help with hiring, training, standard operating procedures, systems and processes, automation, you name it, it's covered in this course. Not only that, you get access to my weekly training calls every Thursday that go from January through the end of September on a week-to-week basis. And you can attend those live and ask questions live. And then, of course, the recordings are put into the university afterward if you can't attend it and make the live training. So there's just so much value. It's the gift that keeps on giving, and it's a great investment into your business to kind of keep you up to date on what's going on, but also kind of point you in the right direction in various things that you're struggling with.
Some of the best training you'll be able to find, you guys, in one spot for one price. Go to 7figureuniversity.com and learn more.
Let's get back to the show. So the head of the billing for this hospital system passes a memo down to the whole system. It's a big, big hospital, and says, we will not take United Healthcare Plan F. That was all the memo was. So regular Plan F, Select Plan F. So we started getting clients because that was a lot of what we were selling at that point in time on the Medicare supplement side.
I remember this.
A lot of our clients were going into this hospital and being turned away. And at the time, I didn't have any employees. I was doing everything myself. So I spent a ton of time digging into the situation, calling over to the hospital, things like that. And after multiple different phone calls over the course of probably a week or two, I finally end up on the phone with the head of the billing department for the whole hospital system. I don't know how, but I did. And this is the person that sent the memo down. I start explaining the situation, and this person knows nothing about insurance. You can tell, right? They don't know anything. The average provider billing person does not know the difference between a Medicare supplement or Medicare Advantage plan. They don't know. All they know is they tried to bill XYZ insurance company and they used the wrong billing code over and over again. It kept getting denied. So XYZ insurance company must be bad. So they tell all the patients that, right? The huge majority, and in the video I made, I went over statistics and studies and everything like that. If you look at the majority of health insurance claim denials, the majority of them are because they're billed wrong. And so somebody that doesn't have an agent or a broker doesn't have anybody to lean on to help untangle this mess. They're at the mercy of the incompetence of the provider. And I don't completely blame the provider either, because I know people that are providers. I know people in around here that are doctors. And the thing I hear from them all the time is it's really hard to keep billing people because it's a difficult job. It's high stress. There's a lot to know. And, they'll get someone in for 3 to 6 months. They'll start to figure out what they're doing. Then they'll quit. They'll bring in another person. They're starting all over. Right.
Right.
And so I don't think it's malice, but I think it's incompetence that's widespread across the healthcare industry. Now, does that mean health insurance companies don't make mistakes and they don't deny things from time to time that they shouldn't deny? I'm certainly not saying that. But that being said, it's not fair to put all the blame at the feet of the insurance companies. It's a wider thing with our healthcare industry in general. Anyway, the way that story ended, I'll wrap this up with this, is after having an hour-long conversation with this head of the billing department for this hospital system, they finally understood what the problem was and what they had caused. It got fixed. And they invited me down to do a training and explain the nuances of Medicare to their whole billing staff. It was like 60 people. And I did. And I had to do that because their entire billing department didn't understand anything about insurance. 60 people that handle billing.
Crazy.
And so that's normal, guys.
Right.
That's normal. So I just think it's crazy to me to see all of these, public figures, Joe Rogan, Patrick Bet-David, people like that aren't in our industry comment on this and be like, well, this awful, evil company, but they don't understand the complexity of why things get denied. And oftentimes, more often than not, the majority of the time, it's really not at the fault of the insurance company.
Well, I think, it's easy to try to shine a spotlight on those instances, like you said, that do happen, right? Where they should cover a claim, they deny a claim for one reason or another. And then it's easy for media or social media to grab onto that story. And now, especially more than ever, I'm seeing those headlines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So-and-so has cancer, and the medication that, could save their life is being denied. And who knows what the actual backstory on that specific denial is, but it's that sensational headline that the media is grabbing onto. The reality is that the majority of the time, these policies are working as intended. The vast majority of the time, when someone submits a claim, whether it's United Healthcare or another Medicare Advantage provider, or, I would argue even outside of that, even in anywhere in any of these major insurance, healthcare insurance providers here in the United States, the vast majority of the time it works. You pay your premium, you submit your claim, the claim gets paid. You don't have to pay as much as you would have if you were uninsured. Everybody wins, right? Mm-hmm. That is the reality of the vast majority of these situations. But there is this minority of either billing errors or, miscommunications, etc. Like there is this subsection, and what that percentage is, I think, it can be argued, right, how big that number is. And that seems to be getting the spotlight right now. And I think this is more of a media grab for attention than anything. That's kind of my personal opinion.
I totally agree. And if anything, what I keep coming back to in this conversation is this points to me that the need for having an agent rather than enrolling yourself is sky high. Because if you look at most of these situations, right, like the most common claim denials I see are incorrect billing code. They went in to get their foot looked at and the billing code said they went in to get their eye looked at. You know what I mean? It's just like blatantly, like stupidly wrong. Out of network, right? Are either of those the insurance company's fault? I would argue no. The insurance company's not in the room with you. I've told clients this over the years before. The insurance company's not in the room with you. They're relying on the claim to tell them what happened in your visit.
Just like a car crash, right?
Yes.
Just like a car accident or an issue with your home. Same exact situation.
And I would say the third one is there was a prior authorization that the provider didn't get for you, right? That's the provider's job. It really is. You can't get a prior authorization on your own. It's almost impossible as a member, one. Right? And what I typically see is the reason why our clients don't deal with these issues, it's not that they don't deal with these issues, it's because we're there that they can lean back on and we can help fix them. Right? So our clients don't have the same experience, and that's what it comes down to. I can only imagine these situations that we deal with in our office at a daily basis. If we weren't there to call to help fix it, it would probably go unfixed. And the perception is the big bad insurance company didn't take care of me.
Yep.
It's not like, oh, the provider sent in a billing code for my eye and I went in for an ankle surgery. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, and so, but it all of this leads back to me to the argument that not having an agent for your health insurance policy is not only stupid, it's irresponsible.
I agree.
And I think it just, if anything, it just strengthens the value proposition that agents provide, because agents help these things from not happening. Like, someone that enrolls into a policy, if they enroll with a good agent, the agent's going to check their doctors, check their providers. They're not going to most likely have a situation where they go out of network. That's going to be almost eradicated, right? That's one of the three things. And I think the agent just provides a pivotal role in preventing these problems from happening. It's like education.
I would take it a step further too, you guys. I would say having a good health insurance broker, not just a health insurance agent, but a broker who works with multiple carriers.
Yes.
If you do start to believe that a certain carrier is not providing the best service or doesn't have the best value, that we see this every year, obviously, in the Medicare space, is every carrier is trying to compete for business. They're offering, different incentives to the actual beneficiaries on top of, potential claims, et cetera. So by having a quality health insurance broker you're working with, that's going to allow you to know, am I with the best carrier for me? Or if an issue does come up, they should be able to alert you and say, hey, there's a major a major hospital system, here in your area doesn't look like they're going to be working with, just like you talked about with that one kind of one-off, but sometimes we see entire systems fall out of network, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Things like that happen all the time. If you're working with a captive agent, they might not have another solution for you.
Yeah.
So by having a broker, they should be able to offer you multiple solutions.
What are your thoughts? Because I've heard people say that a lot of this is being sensationalized in the way that it is because of groups behind the scenes that are trying to use it to kind of navigate towards single payer system. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it kind of circles back to the first thing I said when I was talking about the complexity of the United States healthcare system and how, what could you honestly do to try to simplify what's currently in place? Obviously, a radical change like that would, in theory, simplify it. My concern with obviously we have our own self-interest. We're biased. I think you could say Christian and I are a little bit biased when it comes to, a one-payer system or a government-provided healthcare. When you look at some of these other countries that have a one-payer system, the quality of care a lot of times goes down. The wait to be seen gets even longer. I actually, in high school, I had a family I was really close with that was Canadian. And they were here in the States on a visa. And I remember talking to them all the time about how Canadian healthcare compared to the United States healthcare. And, there were some positives that they shared, but one of the big things I remember them talking about is getting in to see a doctor was really difficult. It took a really, really long time. And that's scary to me. I think the speed to see your doctor is super important when it comes to treating, whatever it is that's going on, whether it's small or big. The longer something festers, that could be the difference between a fatal or a life-threatening or a long-term illness versus, something that maybe just needed medication for, or maybe you just needed a quick procedure to take care of. So so I guess to kind of turn this back to you, beyond that one payer system, which obviously we could probably spend a whole episode just talking about one payer, right? How it could work, all these different flavors of one payer that the politicians have tried to spin out, a one payer with a private option, etc. But beyond that, like what is a way that you think the healthcare system here in the US could actually be simplified without a radical change?
I think if there was some kind of requirement, and here's the thing, I don't 100% know all the requirements it takes to be a billing person. I'm sure there is some kind of training that you're required to go through, but it's not working if there is. To get a job as a billing person, there should be some kind of mandatory training you have to go through that gives you a basic understanding of insurance. Maybe even a little bit more than a basic understanding, right? Like
that would help for sure.
Think about this, right? Like that story I told earlier, right? I do a demonstration on Medicare 101 for a hospital billing system of 60 people, give or take, right? How many of those people you think are still with that system? This was
a lot.
9 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot.
Maybe. I would say some, but I would bet most of them aren't working there anymore.
You're talking about just the billing coordinator,
Yes.
The actual billing coordinator. I thought you were talking about like
that whole like staff that I met with that day. I would just guess
it's probably completely turned over. Right. There might not be a single person still there.
So me doing that explanation might have helped for like a couple of months.
Right.
But it has no impact right now. Right. With that billing system. The other thing that I think makes this really complicated that we haven't even touched on yet is a lot of hospital systems nowadays are outsourcing their billing to third-party billing companies. And we have found there's probably more disasters with some of these third-party billing companies than when they do it in-house. Sometimes it's worse. It's harder to get things fixed because you have to call this third-party company. You can't call the provider's office, right? I think the easiest way to fix it is there just needs to be, I think, an emphasis on education and understanding these things. I also think it would be nice if the providers had some kind of, I guess, requirement where they need to follow up on a claim. Because most of the time, I don't believe that they do. Not saying all. There's probably going to be someone that worked with a provider or was a provider that's going to be like, I'll have you know, I did this and this. I followed up on every claim. I'm not saying there's not exceptions, but I think there needs to be, I think the majority of these things would be resolved if there was education to be a billing person and then there was follow-up on a claim. Because if I'm a provider and I submit a claim and I use the wrong billing code and it gets denied, instead of me just billing the patient the entire balance because the insurance didn't pay, right, maybe I should call the insurance company and see why it was denied and see if I fucked something up. Oh, I did? Let me rebill that.
What I keep coming back to as you're talking about this, you have this relatively confusing job that doesn't pay a lot, that's being outsourced. I keep thinking about AI potentially being a solution here where maybe AI, because again, AI has the potential to be near perfect on billing codes, right? Where, it could access that database of billing codes and at least reduce the number of rejections, right? Which, even if you're talking about a 5% reduction in billing rejections, when you're looking at the sort of volume of claims that some of these health insurance companies are dealing with, a 5% reduction in claim rejection is probably an enormous number.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't help but think technology might be the best way to help reduce, shout out, hey, any health insurance. I have a consulting number I'm thinking in my head. I would love to work with you guys. Maybe we can put together a consulting contract, and Christian and I can get to the bottom of this and really fix this. Maybe we change the podcast name to Glenn and Christian Fixes Everything. Or bust.
or bust.
Or bust.
Glen Shelton and Christian Brindle fix everything immediately or bust. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we're moving into an age of technology where, it very well could fix things. And I think other types of insurance, there might be more situations like that, right? Group health insurance, right. ACA, you might see more of these denials. We deal with Medicare infinitely more than we do with anything else. That's our bread and butter. So I want to kind of preface comments by saying that too. But just from our perspective, that's what I view as the biggest problems. And I think, whether it be additional training, whether it be additional requirements, to do a job like that might not be realistic because it's so hard to get people to want to do those jobs anyway. Maybe technology is the answer and the way to go.
Well, here's the tough part though, is like, I guarantee you technology today could jump in and create a reduction in billing claims being rejected and potentially help in other spots. The insurance industry historically has been one of the slowest adopters of technology of almost any sector in the United States business. I keep thinking about how up to like 2017, 2018, 2019, pre-pandemic, we're using fax machines. We're using a ton of paper. Yeah, a ton of paper, fax machines. That was still like the standard. I remember being shocked when I first got my license back in like 2012, 2013. I remember being like, we're really faxing apps. I'm like, this is crazy.
And every time we talk about this, there's always one or two people still 2025 that come out of the woodworks and they're like, still do paper apps, still do paper scopes, still fact. Like they're out there. Someone will comment on this stream in some place on the podcast and let us know that they are proudly still doing paper, like in 2025. So it's crazy. I remember I went to large industry event. You and I have talked about it many times in Dallas. Won't say the name. And there was a stat they threw out. And I want to say the stat was, this was 2023. The stat was that 30% of their brokers, this organization has hundreds of thousands of agents, by the way. That I think the stat was 30% of their brokers were still doing paper apps.
Crazy.
And they were trying to kind of, put their heads together and find ways to stop that and get them to do it on Sunfire and electronically and things like that.
Well, what was interesting this AEP is there was a couple carriers, or at least one that I remember specifically coming out and saying they were trying to go the opposite direction to slow business down, right? They're like, we're only taking paper apps.
There were several carriers that did that on select plans.
Which again is bonkers to me. Like, why would you want to incentivize an agent and say, send us paper? We're only working with paper right now, you guys. Like, just shut it down. Like, don't do that. Like, ugh, that's disgusting.
I think there's some kind of regulations that forbid them from just stop taking enrollments altogether on a plan without terminating it.
Yeah.
And so their two options are to either cut commissions altogether or suppress the plan.
Right.
If they cut commissions altogether, then the pitchforks come out. The torches and the pitchforks come out, as we've seen, right? In our communities. And so a softer alternative is to suppress it. Just make it more difficult to submit the business, right? Have to jump through additional hoops in order to do that.
That entire topic is really going to be most likely its own show sometime in the near future. So I don't want to get too far down that road. To circle back here, I know we're coming up on the hour, but to circle back on what you had mentioned earlier is, are these headlines being sensationalized to try to advocate for a one-payer health system, or to, potentially, I mean, there's so many different ways we could put our tinfoil hats on, right? And you really want to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole here. There's so many different things that could be going on to try to make these stories a lot bigger than they appear to be. One, and this is the one that I would be almost certain is going on, is every big media company, they're driving clicks. Clicks mean ad revenue, right? Mm-hmm. So if something's trending in the sphere of the United States of attention, and they know they can put another headline out and grab a little bit of that and drive clicks to a website, which gives them ad revenue, that's definitely going to happen. And I think that is definitely going on with some of these healthcare sensationalized stories about denied claims from United Healthcare and from other healthcare providers. Is it one payer health system? Maybe there's maybe they're trying to drive stock prices down on some of these big, right? I mean, we've seen that happen before historically, where certain companies will get dragged through the mud because they're trying to drive the stock price down. Maybe they've got maybe they're shorting certain companies, right? Maybe certain companies are being shorted in the stock market. I always like to follow the money before I follow anything else. And historically, we've seen that happen a lot with major media coming into some of these publicly traded companies.
I think it's a strong possibility, and it makes all the sense in the world. There's always got to be a puppet master in situations like this, right? Like the Wizard of Oz. The wizard's over here. He's really over there, by the way. Shout out Wicked. We're getting close to top of the hour. I want to give us a few minutes to be able to wrap up the episode. Yeah. First off, guys, if you made it all the way to the episode, at the end of the episode, regardless if you're watching this on live, whether you're watching the podcast audio on the various different podcast platforms, this is available, YouTube, whatever. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. You are awesome. You're the MVP of the show, and we certainly appreciate it. Before we move on to final thoughts and close out the episode, I wanted to quickly say that if you guys like the show, right, this is something we're going to be doing 4 times a week, week in and week out for the foreseeable future, to bring you guys value to grow your insurance business. And if you want to support the show, the best way you can do it is if you're listening to us on a platform that allows it, leave us a 5-star review, like Apple Podcasts is a great example. Or if you're watching on YouTube or anything like that, please make sure to subscribe, like the video, engage. That certainly helps the podcast reach more people. Moving into the final thoughts, Glenn, what are your final thoughts on today's episode?
Yeah, and before I mention that, I do want to say, you guys, we are planning on doing a giveaway every single Friday here in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group. So in order to qualify for this giveaway, all you have to do is comment on the live stream, or if it's a replay, anytime during the week that we are publishing these episodes. So if you're not in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group, you're listening to this on a different platform, you're watching on YouTube, get in there. It's one of the best Facebook groups for Medicare agents, for life and health agents that you can find. And then on the live stream, all you have to do is drop at least one comment on one of the videos that are being streamed, the podcast episodes, between Monday to Thursday. We're going to have a member of our team pull all those names Friday, probably about Friday afternoon. And then by end of day Friday, we're going to have the classic wheel spin, and we will announce a winner who will get something completely for free. Could be free leads, could be a free ticket to an event, a free book, free login to an educational system that Christian and I have. Could be all sorts of different things. So Freebie Friday, we're going to be doing that every single week. And all you have to do to qualify is comment on one of the videos, either live or replay, Monday to Thursday, the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. Now, my final thoughts on today's episode, you guys. I thought this was a really great episode. I really enjoyed kind of getting into some of the more topical current events of what's going on. I think to really highlight one of the points that came up is, I think as insurance agents, as Medicare brokers, I think this is a really important role that we can play to help quell the fears and the hysteria almost of some of these beneficiaries that is going on. And again, a lot of it points back to, it's not even reality, right? A lot of this points back to sensationalized media. So I would say if we all do our part and really help educate beneficiaries on what's really going on, you can really help quell the fears and help make it all a better place for all of us. So yeah, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Christian, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think love everything you just said. To kind of echo it a little bit, I think the reason why when I make comments that I say things like, we don't see these things with our clients, it's because we're involved. It's because we are there to intercept and help make it a smoother process and transition. And I think that's the role that agents play. And I think that's messaging that you should be putting out there to your clients in your advertising and your marketing, because it's true. Agents make a huge difference, more than people realize. And I think this gives an opportunity to shine a light on that fact. So appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end of the podcast. Super, super excited. Glenn will not be, I don't believe, on the podcast tomorrow.
I don't know yet, actually. I don't know what my schedule is. I'm going to try to be here, though, for sure. Okay. I'm going to try to be here every day, you guys.
Yes.
I don't want you to have to listen to Christian alone. I'm trying to save you guys from
listen
that,
to me babble for an hour.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we'll be back tomorrow with another live episode. Appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end. And in 2025, let's grow your business to 7 figures or bust. See you guys on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Happy selling.